Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Red Circle, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Also, the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. Also, check us out on Off the Floor. You can find us at winnow.app/off the floor. That's winnow.app/off the floor. You get text directly to your phone from myself, Alex, Brady, and Greg. Don't worry, we won't text you in the middle of the night, but you do get Q&As, you get contests, you get long posts, all kinds of cool stuff there that you don't get on Twitter. And again, you can bypass Twitter, X, or whatever it is it's called these days. And again, you get the text directly to your phone. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. That includes Stones and More. You can find them at mosaics.com. That's MOZAICS.com, a family-owned business serving the community for over 20 years. Dedicated customer service, wholesale distributors, the best quality of porcelain and ceramic tiles, along with a wide variety of high-end mosaics with unique modern designs. Check them out at mosaics.com. That's MOZAICS.com, 305-828-0940. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to 5 on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm back. Thanks to Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and also our guy Eternal and others for holding it down over the past week. Had a little bit of a vacation. Came back. I feel like I need a vacation from the vacation. And here's the floor plan. I thought something might be done while I was gone, Alex. I've got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket, but nothing is done. I was able to follow it on Twitter. If it's not going to get done when
something got done. Something got done, all right. Today, we got breaking news, Ethan. I don't know what you're talking about. The Heat signed Cole Swider. They got it done.
And in 2 years, people will be upset that he got $22 million a year from somebody else. This is another shooter. This one's 6'9". He was playing with the Lakers in Summer League, and he's another guy they may try to develop. They haven't signed him, actually. They've just kind of given him a verbal promise, but we don't know right now if he's going to be an Exhibit 10 or a two-way or how they're going to handle that going forward, and a lot of that does depend on the thing we are going to talk about today, which is Dame. And look, I got some things off my chest on Twitter, X, or whatever, but I haven't been able to do it on the podcast, and I just want to come back to this, and look, I don't want to insult anybody who's trying to do their job, because clearly I'm not an NBA general manager. I haven't worked myself up through the ranks like Joe Cronin did with Portland. He's been there for more than a decade. He was there when Dame was drafted. And again, there's a reason that he's been promoted all this time. So I'm not going to disparage the man personally or in any other way. But what the F is he doing? I mean, I'm just, that's where I'm at, because I don't even understand this from the Blazers' perspective, Alex. This is where I come down on this, okay? Why do they want Dame Lillard to even play for them this season? That's the question I can't seem to get an answer to. Like, you're holding him against his will. That's one thing, okay? He's not going to be happy about it. It's a weird situation for the fans. It's a weird situation for the young players you're trying to build with. But even in practical terms, you should want to be bad this season. As bad as possible. Because that's the way the NBA works. And you only keep your pick if it's a lottery pick. Otherwise, it's going to the Chicago Bulls. So why do you want any wins with Dame Lillard? You literally shut him down in the last 10 games of last season to get a high lottery pick this time. And even though this was a stronger draft, that worked. You got his replacement. What are you holding him for when there are no offers from anybody else? None are going to come. There's nobody who's going to want his contract, $63 million in the last year of it. He's not going to get more valuable as you get up to the trade deadline. It's not like somebody's going to say, oh, Dame's the piece that puts us over the top. That's not what's going to happen. You want to have Dame in training camp if you trade for him and have a full season with him so that it's not a lost season. Can you explain to me, try to put your Blazers hat on here. Try to be any of these, and we've had some of them on the podcast. Aaron Fentress, who I know is more on the side of trading Dame. Sean Highkin, who is more on the side maybe of the Blazers. Others. Why would you keep, if you have a reasonable offer now or a better offer than you get from anywhere else, what is the purpose of taking Dame into training camp and to the season?
It's hard to come up with one as far as taking it as far as the regular season, because I think Damian Lillard, it's just obvious like he helps you win games. Now, that's not to say that they're going to be a playoff team if Lillard plays. It's not really what I'm thinking about. They could still get to that point of getting a lottery pick and not having to give it to the Bulls. It'll just be, I think one later than they want it to be. And I don't think it's a situation where Dame is gonna, it's not gonna go well. Everything is gonna be out in the public. Everything is gonna be messy, and I don't think any party involved actually wants to deal with it. I think that the Blazers are just kind of doing their part in the negotiation and just be like, yeah, I mean, if we have to, we'll go into the season. And they're just trying to kind of, I guess, push that angle where it's like, there's no deadline for us. You guys are the ones with the deadline. And I don't know if you heard Brian Windhorst's comments. I think it was on his podcast on the Hoop Collective, and it was aggregated, where it was really just Windhorst talking about, the Blazers have every reason to hold on, because if they can't figure something out, if there's no, deal that both sides feel good about this summer, maybe a different star becomes available in the regular season, right? And by the trade deadline, maybe you can add to that, and all of a sudden you have Dame with a star and the young guys in this fantasy land vision that I don't think anybody actually thinks is actually possible like that, because we all know the deal. Like this, it's so past that point, especially with, like, on the last podcast we talked about the way that everybody's talking about this situation. UD, Bam, even kind of Josh with the hinting, like everybody knows where we're at, So I think the Blazers are kind of bluffing and just doing, everything they can at this point to get a better deal.
And look, I don't want to disrespect Brian or anybody else who's trying to come up with feasible reasons here, but it seems like even Woj has given up the ghost on this, and we know that he was carrying water for the Portland front office. Like, everybody's looking at this fantasy possibility down the line. Look, if anything was going to change this, okay, that memo is what would have changed it. Because the whole purpose of the memo, if it came from Portland, right, if it's Portland that complained to the league, was to open up the market to more teams. For Dame to have to say publicly, or his agent to say publicly, look, we'll go and we'll play wherever it is that we're traded. The purpose was increasing the market. The purpose was basically giving Joe Cronin a crutch. Well, it hasn't worked. Everybody went on vacation. Like, I had somebody in the Heat front office tell me, which when I said I was going on vacation, they said, don't worry about it. Cronin's not going to do anything. Now,
should they have waited till September to issue that memo?
Maybe right before training camp, maybe to open up it a little bit more. But again, who's going to make that trade right before training camp? Like, we've talked about the Heat have made some trades in the past. Zoe was acquired like the day before the season started. So it wouldn't be the first time. Look, Kyrie Irving was acquired late into the summer by Boston, right? It was August at some point. Okay, so this kind of stuff has happened, but the memo didn't do anything. So what's the next trigger point? So then everybody's like, well, look, Portland doesn't have to do anything. They could just take him to training camp. I'm going to keep saying this. This is more uncomfortable for the Blazers than it is for the Heat. And I understand when people say, well, the Heat are trying to win something this year, so you don't want Lowry and Hero and Robinson not knowing their status coming into camp. Lowry's collecting $30 million next year. He's going to be hanging with his buddy. He's not going to be a problem, okay, going to camp. He knows the deal at this point, okay? Duncan's been through this now for 3 years. And Tyler's been going on Twitter Spaces with Heat fans. Like, it doesn't seem like he's in Milwaukee, okay, doing tours and stuff and posting it on IG. It doesn't seem like he's like crying in his beer right now, okay? Like, it seems like everybody has an understanding of this. I know you did a podcast on this the other night about Jay Rich's comments. Players are aware of this. They don't want to get traded to Portland. I get it, okay, or anybody else. They want to be in Miami. But I do think that they'll be able to come to training camp, and if that's the case, Spoelstra will have an honest conversation with them. I go back to this is a season nobody really talks about, okay? 2009, 2010. We all talk about it in the context of, well, that's when they got the big three, right? They got it after that season, okay? Eric Spoelstra was very proud of his team that year, and I actually thought Eric did a really good job, because he had a ton of guys on expiring contracts. They knew the deal. They knew that most likely they weren't going to get re-signed because the Heat were going after bigger fish in 2010, right? But that team played pretty hard. Like, they weren't good enough. They lost in the first round to Boston. Dwayne wanted more help, but they played hard. Like, we've had Quentin Richardson on the podcast. He's talked about it. The big problems where Beasley didn't develop. I know your guy, but didn't develop the way that they wanted him to develop. And they had some injuries over the course of the season and other things that happened, Jermaine, etc. But they competed. Eric will get the team to compete. Okay, I don't think he's going to have more problems than he had last training camp when everybody seemed to come in with different agendas because this guy wanted to start and Yurt wanted to start and Oladipo was coming back in and you were trying to plug all these different pieces together and Lowry was upset about the whole conditioning thing and all the rest of that things that was happening. And Eric and others were dealing with some personal stuff too. And so I don't think it's going to be harder than it was last training camp. But Portland, I keep saying this, ESPN, they're going to go to Portland. If Dame is in camp or he isn't in camp, that's going to be the story, just like it was when Jimmy wouldn't report in Minnesota. And I've said that I do believe that Dame needs to make it uncomfortable, and I think at some point he will. Maybe it's not the Chris Haynes interview, but he's going to say something, okay, that is going to make things worse intentionally because he has to, okay? And so, Alex, that's what I come to. Like, to me, the clock ticks for the Blazers. Dame's not getting younger.
Yeah, and I just don't believe in that other side that, for example, Windhorst is pointing out where they'll be able to, at some point attract another star who is upset or frustrated, whatever verbiage you want to use, with their situation. I just don't believe it's going to happen. I don't see any star wanting to, sign up for going to play for the Portland Trailblazers while Dame is actively trying to get out of there. Like, I just don't think,
especially
and
now,
even with Dame there,
clown show.
With Dame there, like you said, and I know they have shut him down early in past seasons, but those teams were barely headed for the play-in. So I just don't see the promise for any sort of situation like that. Like, everybody would have to be on the same page for something like that to happen. Maybe they snag a Levine type of star. We're not even talking about a real star. But I think the ship. I mean, what is it? There we go. Me screwing up commonly used phrases again. The ship has sailed, right? Like that ship has sailed. That it's over. It's not going to happen. And you just look through the teams, which I know we're going to go through. It's just hard to come up with reasons. I mean, you could come up with actually on the other hand about 12 different reasons why they should not try to keep Dame and just go straight to kind of stockpiling and going absolutely embracing the rebuild.
After the break, I want to ask this question. So let's think about this a little bit. Can you think of a star who wanted to leave, who was later convinced to stay, and it worked out? Because I had 7 days on a cruise to try to figure that out, and I can't come up with a name, but maybe you can. I do want to mention a couple sponsors here of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Our friend Lynette, well, this will work out. If you need insurance, you need car insurance, you need life insurance, you need retirement programs, anything, they can handle. Notary services, all of it. Our friend Lynette, she's on all of our streams, a huge Miami Heat fan. I mean, when I say big, I mean, she's probably the biggest Miami Heat fan who follows us. InsuranceByLynette.com. You find her InsuranceByLynette.com. It's called A Aggressive Insurance. She's based in sort of the North Lauderdale area, but she services the entire area. We have sent a ton of people to her already, and she always does a great job for them. If you have a bad driving record, she can get you car insurance. I promise you, okay? I've experienced with this, not for me, but she's helped others that I know. So go to A Aggressive Insurance. It's InsuranceByLynette.com. We also want to mention Prize Picks. You can get on the props, not just for the NFL preseason games now, but also going forward for the NFL futures, the NBA futures. It's all there on Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE, and of course, you should be playing Messi all the time there. So use the code 5 FIVE, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. All right, is there a name? Is there anybody you can think of who's asked for a trade, who's been convinced to stay, and it's worked out?
No, I mean, you put me on the spot with that one. I know I can't come up with one right away. Like, it's because usually once you get to that point where a trade is requested and it either leaks or becomes public, like, it's just hard to, I think, go back from that. And it's just so funny that they would try to even, bluff with something like this, considering what just happened, what just took place with KD and Kyrie in Brooklyn. And, obviously Harden was a part of that too earlier in that saga. It's just like nobody actually believes that that's a path worth taking, a path worth going down for the Blazers. I just think you know, I wish there was something that they can do to hurry this up already, but because it's just dragging out. And hey, Joe Cronin might have been right about months and months.
Well, it may be right about months and months, but again, I just don't see how it gets any better. And there's so many factors involved in that. But the one crazy idea is that they'll convince Dame that this is the place to be because, like you said, he wants a star to play with. No star is going to go to that situation under these circumstances. They would have to get a guy who's under contract for the next 3+ years, right? Who's going to fit with Dame. Are they going to get a player who is any better than CJ McCollum was when they traded him? Which means that they've done a complete reversal from trading McCollum in the first place, which was that they were pivoting to try to build a different kind of team. Who are they getting? Pascal Siakam long-term? What does that make the Blazers? And that's the other point to this. I said that they need to try to keep that pick because otherwise it goes to Chicago, right? But under the best case scenario, okay, how high can the Blazers get in the West? Best case scenario. Like, if they don't get a star, what's the highest that they could get? Play-in team? Maybe, if they're fortunate. They had Dame healthy the entire season.
Well, I mean, I was actually looking at that not that long ago and referenced it on a pod that it was about 66 and 67, so relatively healthy, 15 or so missed games. But
no, but the 15 missed games, though, Alex, were 10 of them were forced.
Oh yeah, but that's true. I don't have the timeline on how many of those, where they kind of sat him out.
The last 10 they sat him to soft tank. So he played 67 out of the first 72. Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
67.
So I mean, yeah, like I'm looking at it right now. I just don't see any of those teams that are in the playing race that the Blazers are going to hop over. Which just to remind everybody, OKC, the Pelicans, the Timberwolves, and the Lakers. I think. Sorry. The one scenario that you can kind of look at and say maybe, you can kind of hope that they just have another terrible season with injuries is the Pelicans, right? But even then, like the Mavericks are right there. The Mavs are going to have a full season now with Luka and Kyrie, and
they had a good draft. They seem to upgrade the roster. I mean, a lot of people like what they've done. I want to see how it looks with Luka and Kyrie, but I would anticipate that they would be better. So what's their best? So maybe I guess Cronin isn't worried about losing the lottery pick because he doesn't think they have a chance to do any better than the play-in to begin with, even with Dame. Then what is the point of keeping him?
Exactly. All you're doing is just worsening where your pick is going to be. Because that team should be one where like you already, like I've mentioned on so many pods before, I've hammered this point just so many times. It's just you kickstarted that rebuild. And you did it while promising Dame that you were trying to get him help. You did it by, as everybody has pointed out, drafting his quote-unquote replacement, somebody who's a 19-year-old point guard. And, getting Scoot at 3 is great for them. But also, when you add the Shaedon Sharpe and the other picks that they've got in these past couple of years, like, you've got something there. You've got a foundation there. They should be adding to it, adding other insane talents, and, like, getting Dame to play. And maybe they go from having the second pick potentially to, I don't know, like the 8th or the 9th pick. Like, what are you doing that for? Like, I just don't see the vision. They've already got what they need to transition. You know what I mean? It's not going to be an ugly transition where you start from scratch. You already have these exciting young players, and to sell to a fan base that is, everybody loves them and everybody says the Blazers fans are great, and they fill out the Rose Garden, if that's what it's still called. But I think they just got to do it at this point because dragging this into training camp, it's going to get ugly, man. Everybody at that point, think about that. Training camp is late September, right?
Mm-hmm.
Around that point. Okay. So when was the trade request first made?
I mean, we're 37 days today. So it was made, June 30th, July 1st, somewhere around that time frame.
Yeah. I mean,
is Dame going to be any happier? Dame wasn't happy to begin with. Is he going to be any happier having to share the ball now with a 19-year-old, no matter how talented that player is? And then how happy is Anthony Simons going to be having to move to the 3. And how happy is Sharp going to be after he had a breakout in the second half of last season, sitting behind all of these guys while they're getting bludgeoned on the boards, with the exception of Nurkic. They don't have any front court players. And so this is not. And
they have Jeremy Grant locked in at 5 years.
Okay, you're right. You're right. They do have Jeremy Grant, but there's not a lot of depth there. I'm just saying, like, best case scenario, there is talent there, but the talent is all over the place. It's mostly at the guard position. And these are players Dame is getting in their way, and they're going to get in his way. And so I understand that, like, there's this narrative, and we're going to try to bring some of these people on, okay, whether it's Matt Moore, HP Basketball, etc., who, it's just like Heat fans are spoiled, gimme. But it's not like this is coming from nowhere. Like, I'm trying to put myself in the Blazers' shoes, and the only thing I can say is they're waiting on some fantasy deal to come along that is not going to actually happen, or they're waiting to convince Dame to stay, which is not going to actually happen, where he's going to be happy about it, because there's no precedent for that, and he digs his heels in, as we saw, because he just stayed for 11 years with a franchise that didn't give him much to play with because he didn't want to run from the grind. Well, now he wants to run from it, so he's going to run as fast as he freaking can, and that's kind of where we're at. And so I come back from the trip and I'm kind of like, okay, nothing happened, except it just seems to me like the Blazers lost the only leverage that they had, which was this stupid memo, which now we're 2 weeks out of this. And now there's been reports as well that there's no way that the league, and I know there's only Sam Amico and a couple others speculated this, there's no way the league is going to veto a trade. So really, that was never a possibility from the first place, because it's not the same as the Chris Paul thing, because the league owned a team in that case. And so there was a lot that was going on there that has nothing to do with this. And so I'm just going to close here, and I appreciate you guys holding it down for this. This thing just got stupider since I left. I mean, seriously, it just did. Like, that's it. Okay? Dame is going to be with the Heat eventually. The Heat players know it. That's why Bam, UD, and all. Because really, it is complete malpractice at this point for the Blazers to take this guy into training camp. It is. It makes no sense for them. It makes no sense for him. Has nothing to do with the Miami Heat. Thanks to our sponsors, Mosaics.com, Stones and more. You can find them. Also, Prize Picks. Use the code 5FIVE, and A-Aggressive Insurance, insurancebyLynette.com. We're doing a Dwayne Wade week. We're going to go through 5 different eras. We're going to do it on playback. We're going to do it on the podcast. We got Norris Cole coming in. We're going to have some others coming in. We're going to celebrate Dwayne this week. And we're not going to try to talk about Dame quite as much, although I'm sure it'll come up. Have a good night, everyone.